fucked up my sound. Oh wait, maybe my sound is working now. Maybe my sound is working now. Maybe my sound is working now. Good evening. I'm sorry I'm late. I got caught doing I was doing some chores and I lost track of time. Let me see if I can turn this down. Oops, that's not what I want to do. I'm going to hope that fan behind me is not disturbing. Hi, Badger. Hi, Oomph. Hi, Siegfried. I hope you can hear me. I think you can. Yeah, it looks like you can. How is everyone? So, yeah, sorry I was late. I was going down to take garbage out, and I was cleaning up the kitchen, and I just lost track of time. I just lost complete track of time. So, how are you this evening? Ooh. Can you feel the love tonight? I would like, okay, that's what I want. Oops, we definitely have some observers from Tina en route here to check it out and see if we're doing the right thing. All right, see you in a minute. Oh, speaking of which, I have mine. I have mine right here. So yeah. I hope everyone's good. I hope you had a good day. I think I had a good day. Oh, I started thinking about designing what a new dinosaur costume might look like. That's what I thought about for a little bit this afternoon. See if I can find the browser. Oh, actually, you know what else? I want to find us a campfire. Hold on. Where? Give me a campfire. Wow, they're really out tonight. They are out tonight. Can you see LAPD tonight? Ooh. Could make a song up about LAPD. F12. Yeah, they're not nice. They're really not nice. You're not very nice. Oi, Governor, you're not very nice. Can you feel the love tonight? I'm not singing very well. I should stop. Blah. Speaking of cleaning the kitchen. Ooh, Siegfried, your brain is on overload, going to stare at a movie. Oh, Churchill might not be the least stressful subject matter, but I think that's probably a good idea. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. And I fully support I like this one. I like this one. Well, thanks for stopping by, Siegfried. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a good night and get some good rest. No, it should be fine. It should be fine. Oops. Oh, okay. No, you don't do that. Don't do that. I'm not gonna restart shit. Fine, it's making me work for it. If I work it, is it worth it? Wait, we've already seen that one. I kind of like this one. I wonder if we should see if we like this one. It's kind of bright, but maybe it's okay. Let's see. Wow, nothing wants to... Oh, okay. Something's not right with my computer, but okay. We're just gonna ignore it. So yeah. Seems to me it's a big fucking deal, and I hope it gains a lot of traction. What did you... Oh, gosh, Siegfried, thank you for asking. Yeah, the interview with CNN, Caitlin Collins. I get very distracted by her face. She looks like an Easter egg to me. And I don't like her very much because I think she's probably, pretty crazy. Oh, really? Oh, that's good. Wow. I had things up pretty high. So I'm having a little bit of trouble setting the audio on this computer, but I'm sure I'll work it out. It's just learning what's what and where it is. But I'm having trouble. Actually, what I'm having trouble with isn't the microphone. I'm having trouble with the with monitoring the sound. So like headphones. So, but that's great. I'm glad. That's great. Thank you for that. It's helpful. I know, I'm so sorry, but she really does. Every time I see her, her face is so perfect that I think she looks like an Easter egg. And she's always in like some kind of pastel. I don't like pastels that much. I'm not a real pastel fan. I have nothing against a good pastel, but, give me a good sea foam. I'm all over it. But yeah, I am sorry about that. But I had that visual today, or yesterday when I was watching it. And I thought, oh my God, I gotta tell somebody this. So I'm glad you brought it up. But I'm also glad you brought it up because I think it was a very consequential interview. And I feel like he was very well spoken. I even clipped a part when she asked him if he should run for president or if people should vote for him. And he said, I can't remember exactly how he put it, but it was pretty eloquent and it was pretty simple. And it was like, I don't think he should run the country, or whatever it was he said, but it was really good. So I thought, I'm interested to see. I don't know why he hasn't been called as a witness yet. I guess they can't do any of that, right? Is that what it is? They can't during the stay or whatever it is. The pause. Is it that they can't do that? I don't know. Oops, I forgot my drink. Hold on.
That is so good here. Thank you very much. Thank you, it would be my pleasure.
Did you ever, oops, sorry, I hit the microphone. Did you ever watch Marcel the Shell with shoes on? I think Jenny Slate is so funny. Jenny Slate is one of my favorite comedians. I think she's brilliant. I hope nothing on mine is playing. I don't have anything open. And but Marcel the Shell. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's the pause. It's the great pause. Everything's on pause. Everything's on pause. But I think that, what was I going to say? I can't remember. The DC case is on pause, but the Florida case, I don't know. I don't think the Florida case is on pause. I think that Cannon is taking it very slow so that she can just like delay it, but do it like a judge does it, you know. So I think that's what the dealio is with that. But I thought that was a very good interview, and I unfortunately, a lot of people think that case is kind of a slam dunk. So perhaps that's why they're fighting so hard to keep her on it. But I don't know what it would take to get her off of it. I don't understand how that would work. She would have to, I would imagine she would have to do something pretty egregious in order to be removed. And she already has not decided that she's going to recuse. So yeah, that case. Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. One hopes that Jack Smith's teams, I should say, are working on the pieces that are appropriate. Uh-oh. Hold on. Where's my battery? Why is my battery so low? What? Uh-oh. Hold on. Hold on, everybody. Got a little power issue. What? Why are you so weird? Okay, that's the monitor, so that's fine. But then this is probably not fine. Ah! Oh, I see. Okay, excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. This is Wendy's drive-thru, and I'm gonna need you to not. Where is this damn plug? Where's the dang plug? He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodie car. Where am I plugged in? What is this? Oh, that's what it is. Oh no! Okay. Okay, there we go. Oh boy. Oh, poor baby. Poor baby. Sorry about that very much. I hope I can stay alive. I'm quite a bit low. I didn't notice the thing wasn't charging. That's okay. That's all right. Oops. Okay. Say hi to your daughter. Yeah, I was. I will. I will say hi. Bobo. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, she was working late. Oof. It's so glamorous. The film industry is so very glamorous. All right, now that I'm going to pray that my computer stays up. If not, I may just come back on my phone and oh God, the cat jumps on the back of my chair and it scares the fuck out of me. Sammy, you are a crazy cat. Cool kids. Real cool. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Bump bump. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Boom 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 boom. I know you can't really get over there. Sorry. You could go the other way. Please. Thank you. Could you go the other way, Sam? No. Okay. You know what? How about you win? How about you win, sir? Yep, there you go. Don't say I never gave you anything. You don't bring me flowers anymore. The movie industry work hours sound brutal. Yeah, they seem to be. I mean, low on the totem pole. Sorry, I didn't mean to use that phrase. Forgive me. Early in her career, so obviously putting in a lot more hours, or, putting in a lot of hours, I should say. I can't say if it's more or less than anyone else. Seems like everybody works pretty long hours. But right now she's working in post-production, so it's a little more normal. I do like this book. I think it kind of skims the surface, which is fine for me because there are many of these pieces that I don't really recall from growing up and learning about them, or I recall them, but this is funny. I recall them in the context and the positioning of the time, right? So if Ronald Reagan lied about something, then my understanding is that he was lying about it, but at the end of the day, that was just politics or something like that, or that, I don't know, there was this weird feeling that you hoped people at least had humanity at the end of the day. I don't know. I was a kid. I was naive. But we definitely were anti-Reagan in my household. We were very left-wing family. My dad was vehemently anti-war, as were all of us, really. So yeah, anyway, it's they work really long. Everybody seems to work really long hours. I don't know. She doesn't act. She's not an actress. She does crew. She does camera work on set, and then other stuff in post. So yeah, but she loves it. She absolutely loves it. She loves everything about it. Post-production, on set. She likes on set a little bit better. It's just a little more dynamic, obviously. But those hours are kind of yucky, because sometimes you have to film overnight, and it could be miserable conditions or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So it can just be like seems exhausting. I don't know, I'm talking like a mom right now, so I'm going to stop. Because that's annoying. I'm just so proud of her. She wanted to do this since she was a little kid. She wanted to work in movies. So I'm proud of her. She did a good job. She's a good person. She works hard. So, yeah. All good. Lots to be grateful for. I can't seem to pull up a frickin'... I wonder why. I'm gonna see if I can... oh yeah, let me... Let's see... There's something... All these... Oh my god, there's another. That's like the fourth... helicopter since I started. Yeah, Sam, go get that. Sam, tell that guy to get out of here. Say, get out of here, duck. You're just like your father. You ever heard that? Is that Nick Kroll or something? I can't remember who that is. Oh, I think it's... Oh, it might be John Mulaney. Well, sorry about that. I wonder if it'll let me play. Oh, is it going to let me play? Why is it not letting me play videos? Isn't that weird? Audio rendered. I don't know what that means. Okay, fine. You guys are idiots. Anyway, hi Badger. Yeah, she's a good kid. She's been awfully nice to me. I'll give her that. I mean, really. Totally. Oh, yeah, it's just after the movie is shot. It's putting it all together. Different parts of it. Yeah, so... Definitely not as not as glamorous, but no job's glamorous. That's a misconception, I think. I suppose maybe if you really, like, made it to the top, the position's pretty glamorous, but she just likes doing what she's doing. She doesn't really have that. She's happy if she's creating something. Anyway, enough about that. Again, I'm sounding like an annoying mother. I don't wish to. Yeah. So actually I should do something like, even though my video doesn't seem to be wanting to cooperate. I don't really understand that. That's okay. It's just one more of the weird things that happen here at Lolo's Lounge. Wait, what is this Democracy Awakening? Where am I? Who am I? Yeah, I probably will maybe do 2 chapters. Nope. Yeah, so, this book. Alright, Siegfried, have a great night, sweetheart. It's good to see you. Thanks for stopping in, I appreciate it. I gotta check the hearings. Oh, actually, I think there's something happening tomorrow with Hunter Biden at 1:30 Pacific. 4:30 Eastern. There's some phone conference. So I'll be, I think I can restream it. If I can, I will. So perhaps I'll see you then. But take good care. Take good care. Have a good night. Get some really, really solid rest. So, Democracy Awakening. We are just about, we're a third of the way through. So I better hustle my bustle. Get us through this book. I also got my copy of... Thanks, Siegfried. I also got my copy of Lev Parnas's book, which I had ordered from his self-publishing thing. So I'm kind of curious to read that, I think. So, I will say that this is, as with any historical book, discusses the challenges, as it discusses the challenges to democracy. It recounts some very traumatic and terrible historical events that happened in our country. And so at times there will be quotes or descriptions that could be a little tough to hear. So please consume the content carefully. And I may avoid certain words, so forgive me. The intention is to read it in a hushed tone so that you can rest. And the goal is to ensure that you drift off to sleep if that's available to you. And just put this day away. Put this Tuesday in its place. Mise en place. Everything in its place. And as with Tuesday, we can put it behind us. So that's a good thing. So I'm going to start with chapter 13. That'll continue. You can read or listen rather, to the other chapters on the Bedtime with Lolo playlist for Democracy Awakening, which is available on the channel. Jacques Z. Woodcutter jokes. No. Uh-oh, does it have to do with mise en place? Uh-oh. All right, well, you'll have to remind me of one of them. Oh, well then we can leave them where they lie then, shan't we? I think that's a good place to do that. Yeah, so this day is absolutely done. It is no longer a thing. And, yeah. Not a terrible day, not a exceptional day, not a amazing day, not anything. The sun came out, that was nice. Gonna be able to sit outside soon, that's very nice. Although we sit outside now, but it's a little colder. So, alright, let's get on to it. Chapter 13. Democracy Awakening. Russia, Russia, Russia. Even before Trump took office, his campaign's troubling ties to Russia showed an affinity for authoritarianism rather than for American democracy. From the country's beginning, the founders worried that a foreign power could take control of the nation by installing a puppet in the presidency. The framers required that any president be native-born, the only office having that condition, and in his 1796 farewell address, George Washington warned against political partisans turning to foreign nations for help at home, noting that the U.S. would then simply become a vassal of another power. When someone did just that in 1798, offering to change official U.S. policy if France would help elect his preferred candidate, Congress made such interference illegal with the 1799 Logan Act. Concerned that foreign powers could use money to swing U.S. policies toward their own interests rather than that of the American people, modern Congresses established laws against asking for or accepting anything at all of value from a foreign national. And yet, In early January 2017, Director of National Intelligence James Clapper released a report that aggregated the findings of the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA, the National Security Agency, which operates under the authority of the Director of National Intelligence, concluding that Russia had interfered in the 2016 election to help Trump. Over the next 2 years, 2 investigations, one by Special Counsel Robert Mueller from the Department of Justice and another by the Republican-dominated Senate Intelligence Committee, found that the Trump campaign had, at the very least, played along. The story was not just about Trump or Russia or the private dealings between the two. It was the story of authoritarianism undermining American democracy by using disinformation to manipulate voters. Russia's interference in the 2016 U.S. election began in the decades when Republican politicians who believed that fighting socialism meant spreading free market capitalism found common cause with global authoritarians who leveraged their anti-communism to attract U.S. funding. Then, after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, as oligarchs rose to power in Russia, money and influence began to flow the other way as these newly wealthy Russians invested their money in the U.S. and other democracies, where the rule of law kept it safe. Their political interests in those countries allied with those on the political right, who focused on the accumulation of wealth rather than the social welfare or civil rights. By the early 2000s, a struggle for control of resource-rich Ukraine, which sits in Eastern Europe and borders Russia, became a key battleground for the forces of democracy and autocracy. Ukraine had begun to turn toward European democracies, preferring the personal freedoms and higher standard of living they offered over Russia's rising oligarchy. Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin, wanted to regain power over Ukraine by installing a puppet government under his ally Viktor Yanukovych. To do so, in 2004, the men turned to the American political consultant who had been managing Republican campaigns since Nixon, Paul Manafort. Using Manafort's signature methods of demonizing opponents, Yanukovych won the Ukraine presidency in 2010, but his attempts to tie the country to Russia failed. In 2014, the Ukrainian people threw him out. Putin then invaded Ukraine and claimed Crimea. Ukraine was not formally allied with the United States and the European Union, but no one who was paying attention missed that Putin's fight to control Ukraine was a threat to European democracies. The U.S. and the European Union responded with economic sanctions, prohibiting certain Russian businesses and oligarchs from doing business with U.S. entities. With Yanukovych's removal, Manafort was out of a job, and he owed about $17 million to allies of Yanukovych and Putin. His longtime friend and business partner Roger Stone was advising the floundering presidential campaign of Donald Trump, and Manafort stepped in to help. He did not take a salary, but immediately after getting the job, he did reach out to a Russian oligarch to whom he owed millions, asking him, quote, "How do we use this to get whole?" Manafort began to advise the Trump campaign in March 2016, and by April, according to the Senate Intelligence Committee, Putin had launched an effort to hurt the Clinton campaign in order to boost Trump's chances. Trump campaign officials met with Russian operatives in June, apparently to discuss ending sanctions and establishing a pro-Russia republic in the regions of Ukraine Putin wanted, and that month Manafort became Trump's campaign chair. By summer, Putin ordered hacks of democratic computer networks, and at 2 crucial moments, WikiLeaks, which the Senate committee concluded was allied with the Russians, dumped illegally obtained emails that were intended to hurt Clinton. The first dump, just before the Democratic National Convention in July, forced Democratic National Committee Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz to resign. The second, in October, came immediately after the release of a tape of Trump boasting about sexually assaulting women, in which he said, quote, "And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab 'em by the pussy. You can do anything." Days after the first major leak from WikiLeaks, Trump openly invited Russia to hack the U.S. Secretary of State's computer system, which he insisted had important information on it. Quote, "Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing," he said. Reporters were shocked at a political candidate openly calling for a foreign country to attack the U.S., but Trump doubled down, repeating the request. In August, Manafort officially resigned from the campaign, but he continued to advise it unofficially, passing secret campaign polling data to his Ukrainian business partner, Konstantin Kilimnik, whom the Senate Intelligence Committee called a Russian intelligence officer. At the same time, he continued to coordinate with Russian persons to undertake activities on their behalf. Meanwhile, Russian operatives were mirroring Bannon's Cambridge Analytica, flooding social media with disinformation. Their fake stories did not necessarily explicitly endorse Trump, but rather spread lies about Clinton in order to depress Democratic turnout, or riled up those on the right by falsely claiming that Democrats intended to ban the Pledge of Allegiance, for example. This sort of disinformation was an old Republican tactic, but social media made it more pervasive than before. The goal of the propaganda was not simply to elect Trump. It was to pit the far ends of the political spectrum against the middle, tearing the nation apart. Fake accounts drove wedges between Americans over issues of race, immigration, and gun rights. A study by the National Bureau of Economic Research later found that in the last 3 months of the election, users shared false content on Facebook 38 million times. It worked. Trump supporters did not object to his open attack on American democracy by calling for Putin's help. Instead, they began to wear t-shirts that said things like, quote, "I'd rather be Russian than a Democrat." They also began to put up slogans on Facebook pages and elsewhere that offered, quote, "free helicopter rides" to their opponents, a chilling reference to the Chilean dictator Nixon had helped bring to power, Augusto Pinochet, whose goons had murdered dissidents by tossing them from helicopters. Government officials were aware that something was up between the Trump campaign and Russia, and that it could be compromising national security. In July, Trump operative George Papadopoulos told an Australian official that the Russians were giving the campaign dirt on Clinton, and the Australian government shared the information with the U.S. By the end of July, FBI Director James Comey opened a counterintelligence investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. President Barack Obama directly confronted Putin over the issue, warning him not to attack election infrastructure, and in August began briefing congressional leaders. He asked the 4 top politicians in Congress, the majority and minority leaders of each house, to issue a joint statement warning that Russia was interfering with the election. But according to Obama's White House Chief of Staff, Dennis McDonough, it took 3 weeks to get Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on board to release any statement at all, and the one that emerged played down the crisis. Finally, on October 7th, the Secretary of Homeland Security and the Director of National Intelligence issued a joint statement warning that Russia was interfering with the U.S. election. And on November 8th, Trump won. Immediately after the election, the FBI caught Trump National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn assuring Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak that the new administration would change U.S. policy towards Russia. Then it turned out that Trump's Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, had also had contact with Kislyak during the campaign, despite having told senators during his confirmation hearing that he had not. Soon after taking office, Trump asked Comey to drop the investigation of Flynn, and when Comey refused, Trump fired him. The next day, he told the Russian delegation he was hosting in the Oval Office, quote, "I just fired the head of the FBI. He was crazy, a real nut job. I faced great pressure because of Russia. That's taken off." In the midst of public outcry over Comey's firing, Deputy Attorney General Rod J. Rosenstein in May appointed former FBI Director Robert Mueller as special counsel to oversee the FBI investigation into Russian efforts to influence the 2016 presidential election.
The Russia investigation became the defining event for the Trump presidency. Trump fought back in part because it was important for him to distance himself from the potentially illegal behavior being exposed by investigators. There was more to his counterattack than that, though. If he could get Americans to reject the truth and accept his lies about what had happened, they would be psychologically committed to him. Reversing reality, Trump and his allies insisted that he was an innocent victim and that the investigators were the ones who had broken the law. They claimed the investigation was a Democratic witch hunt, despite the fact that Comey, Rosenstein, and Mueller were all Republicans and Trump had appointed Rosenstein himself. They began to attack the Obama administration for investigating Russian attacks on the election and to call Obama and his Vice President Joe Biden, along with the career intelligence and justice officials who tried to defend the country against foreign interference, part of a deep state conspiracy to injure the president. Trump saturated Twitter and the media with attacks on the FBI and hounded its agents from office, making a special effort against those agents who specialized in money laundering. Trump purged officials who accepted the findings of the Intelligence Committee from his administration. He replaced the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, a well-regarded former Republican senator who maintained that Russia had interfered in the 2016 election. Trump also fired Attorney General Jeff Sessions, replacing him first with Sessions' loyalist Chief of Staff, Matthew Whitaker, who became acting Attorney General without Senate confirmation, and then with William Barr, who had been President George H.W. Bush's Attorney General when Bush pardoned those involved in the Iran-Contra scandal. Barr took office on February 14, 2019, just as Mueller was finishing his report. Before letting anyone else see it, Barr spun the document as a complete exoneration of the president. The media repeated his misstatement.
Hey. Cat. Sorry, everybody. The cat's knocked stuff over. That's fine. The cat's just knocked stuff over. It's fine. I think it's fine. Sorry about that, everybody. That's just a little wake-up call, I guess. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Make sure that's okay. Yeah, looks like it's okay. Alright, where was I? In fact, Mueller's report established that Russia had illegally intervened in the election to benefit Trump, and that the campaign expected it would benefit electorally from the information stolen and released through Russian efforts. Mueller publicly complained to Barr about the spin he had put on the report, but it was too late. Trump crowed that he was exonerated, and his supporters not only bought it, they accepted it as proof that the institutions of government were persecuting their president. Barr then appointed his own investigator, John Durham, to prove that it was Ukraine, not Russia, that attacked the election. The investigation closed in 2022 without any proof of those allegations. Republican lawmakers helped Trump's disinformation campaign, using their positions to mislead the public and legitimize his lies. And I'll just add, they're still doing it today. House Republicans, especially those in the right-wing Freedom Caucus, along with a bloc of right-wing senators, backed the president. Since the Republicans controlled the Senate, their chairing of key committees helped them legitimize his allegations. Senators Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, Charles Grassley of Iowa, and Rand Paul of Kentucky echoed Trump in calling for investigations of Democrats. Trump was consolidating his power. Even those Republicans who disliked his tactics liked his ability to get support from voters, so they stayed silent even as Trump began to swing U.S. policy toward Russia, notably by undermining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Formed in 1949 to stand against the USSR, NATO had shifted to countering an aggressive Russia. Trump's actions weakened U.S. ties to traditional European allies,
and he threatened to withdraw support for Ukraine in its defensive war against the Russian invaders. Republican senators appeared to have faith that their control over sanctions, which the Treasury Department continued to use over Russian cyber attacks, for example, and over funding for Ukraine, would keep pressure on Russia. In the end, 34 people in 3 companies were indicted or pled guilty in the attack on the 2016 election or its cover-up, including Papadopoulos, Manafort's partner Rick Gates, Flynn, Kilimnik, Trump lawyer Michael Cohen, Roger Stone, 12 Russian intelligence operatives, 13 Russian nationals, and 3 Russian companies. Before he left office, Trump pardoned those who had refused to cooperate with the Department of Justice: Flynn, Stone, Manafort, and Papadopoulos. In 2022, a jury found that the single person indicted after Durham's investigation, a lawyer associated with Hillary Clinton, not guilty. But Trump loyalists believe Trump, not the investigators. Republicans who might have turned the tide stayed silent, while others backed their president, and his base agreed that he had been attacked by a deep state run by leftist Democrats. He had successfully sold his own narrative over the truth, and his supporters would continue to believe him rather than those calling him out. Even after the dust had settled, Trump dumped complaints about Russia, and the Russian hoax into the news to undercut any attempts to stop him. He and his allies portrayed anyone who protested either as operatives of the deep state or as victims of Trump derangement syndrome, tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorists. And that's the end of chapter 13. The next chapter, chapter 14, is about Charlottesville. So I'll give you that warning now. I forgot to put a warning out. I'm so sorry. Okay, sorry about that. All right. Deep breath. And weed. Was that smoke weed every day? Smoke weed every day. If you want to. Don't do it if you shouldn't. Oh, I also forgot to put the age limit. Oh, maybe it's on there. I don't know. Chapter 14. The Streets of Charlottesville. Trump's attempt to exert control over his supporters might have begun as a way to protect himself from potential legal repercussions for his behavior, but it quickly became part of an effort to create a movement. Trump's anti-immigrant policies and language of dominance heartened right-wing gangs that had previously operated on society's margins. 6 months into Trump's presidency, they launched a coming-out party. On August 11, 2017, racists, anti-Semites, white nationalists, Ku Klux Klan members, neo-Nazis, and members of other alt-right groups met in Charlottesville, Virginia to, quote, unite the right. The man who organized the rally, Jason Kessler, claimed he wanted to bring people together to protest the removal of statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee from a local park. But the rioters turned immediately to chanting slogans from the German Nazis of the 1930s. Quote, you will not replace us. Quote, Jews will not replace us. And, quote, blood and soil. They gave Nazi salutes and carried Nazi insignia. Many had brought battle gear and went looking for fights. By the end of the next day, they had killed counter-protester Heather and injured 19 others. After the governor of Virginia declared a state of emergency, the rioters went home. The United States has always had violent street mobs, from anti-Catholic gangs in the 1830s to Ku Klux Klan chapters in the 1860s to anti-union thugs in the Depression. In the 1930s, anti-New Deal businessmen determined to overthrow FDR's presidency deliberately tried to tap into the passions of the nation's traditional anti-immigrant, anti-black, anti-union, and anti-Jewish brawlers. They hoped to create the same sort of violent right-wing gangs in the U.S. that had helped overturn governments and install right-wing dictators in Europe. In 1934, they sent Wall Street broker Gerald McGuire to Europe to see how fascist leaders had mobilized veterans to enable them to seize power. When McGuire returned, he tried to recruit retired U.S. Marine Major General Smedley Butler to lead a similar paramilitary coup against FDR. McGuire claimed to represent U.S. financial interests and to have $6 million to put behind the effort. Butler alerted the authorities and the attempt failed, but fascism had shown anti-New Dealers a way to marry their ideology to popular political activism. Get people fighting first, and they can be led toward right-wing politics next. In America, the hallmark of budding fascism was not intellectuals discussing how to take power, it was populist violence. There was a straight line from the anti-New Deal violence of the 1930s to the street brawlers at Charlottesville. Since the 1950s, opponents of the liberal consensus had urged supporters to think of themselves as heroic, individualistic cowboys who had not only had the right but also the duty to protect their families from the alleged socialism of the government. That narrative helped spark extraordinary violence against Black Americans and other minorities, but by 1992, right-wing violence had begun to shift toward violence against the government itself. In August of that year, the idea erupted at Ruby Ridge, Idaho. Randy Weaver, a former factory worker, had moved his family to northern Idaho to escape what he saw as the corruption of American society. He failed to show up for trial on a firearms charge. When federal marshals tried to arrest him, a firefight left Weaver's 14-year-old son and a deputy marshal dead. Federal and local officers then laid an 11-day siege to the Weaver's cabin, during which a sniper wounded Weaver and killed his wife, Vicky. Right-wing activists and neo-Nazis from a nearby Aryan Nations compound swarmed to Ruby Ridge to protest the government's attack on what right-wing media insisted was simply a man protecting his family. Negotiators eventually brought Weaver out, but the standoff at Ruby Ridge convinced Western men they had to arm themselves to fight off the government. The next February, the same theme played out in Waco, Texas, when officers stormed the compound of a religious cult whose former members reported that their leader, David Koresh, was stockpiling weapons. A gun battle and a fire ended the 51-day siege on April 19, 1993. 76 people died. While a Republican investigation cited overwhelming evidence that exonerated the government of wrongdoing, talk radio hosts nonetheless railed against the administration, especially Attorney General Janet Reno, for the events at Waco. Talk radio host Rush Limbaugh stoked his listeners' anger with reports of the Waco invasion and talked of the government's murder of citizens, making much of the idea that a group of Christians had been killed by a female government official who was single and, as opponents made much of, unfeminine. Reactionary rocker Ted Nugent featured an obscene caricature of Reno for years in his stage version of Kiss My Glock. Alex Jones, who in 1999 would go on to start the right-wing conspiracy site InfoWars with the tagline, "There's a war on for your mind," claimed to be horrified by the government's attempt to break into the cult's compound. He dropped out of community college to start a talk show where he alleged that Reno had murdered the people at Waco and warned that the government was about to impose martial law. The modern militia movement took off. The combination of political rhetoric and violence radicalized a former Army gunner, Timothy McVeigh, who decided to bring the war home to the government. "Taxes are a joke," he wrote to a newspaper in 1992. "More taxes are always the answer to government mismanagement. Is a civil war imminent? Do we have to shed blood to reform the current system? I hope it doesn't come to that, but it might." On April 19, 1995, a date chosen to honor the Waco standoff, McVeigh set off a bomb at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. The blast killed 168 people, including 19 children younger than 6, and wounded more than 800. When the police captured McVeigh, he was wearing a T-shirt with a picture of Abraham Lincoln and the words "Sic Semper Tyrannis," the same words John Wilkes Booth shouted after he assassinated Lincoln. They mean "thus always to tyrants," and are the words attributed to Brutus after he and his supporters murdered Caesar. By 1995, right-wing terrorists envisioned themselves as protectors of American individualism, in the face not of a tyrant but of a socialist government. In 2009, Elmer Stewart Rhodes, a lawyer and former paratrooper who had been a staffer for Republican Congressman Ron Paul of Texas, started a right-wing gang called the Oath Keepers. Claiming to take their inspiration from the Patriots who stood against the British regulars on Lexington Green in 1775, they pledged to stand against what they considered a tyrannical government. The Oath Keepers showed up in 2014 when Nevada cattle rancher Cliven Bundy announced that he did not recognize the government's power over the federal land on which he had been grazing his cattle for more than 20 years. Bundy owed the government more than $1 million in grazing fees for running his cattle on public land, even as he disparaged the, quote, Negro who lived in government housing and, quote, didn't have nothing to do, and wondered whether black people, quote, are better off as slaves picking cotton and having a family life and doing things, or are they better off under government subsidy, close quote. Officials from the Bureau of Land Management set out to impound Bundy's cattle, but backed down when he and his supporters showed up armed. By then, the anti-government movement was deep in the Republican Party leadership. Senator Dean Heller of Nevada called Bundy and his supporters patriots, and he and other Republicans openly supported Bundy until his racist comments finally prompted them to turn away. From the outset of the standoff, Democrat Harry Reid, also of Nevada, and Senate Majority Leader at the time, called Bundy and his supporters domestic terrorists and warned, "It's not over. quote, "It's not over. We can't have an American people that violate the law and then just walk away from it. So it's not over." Oh, the moon is so pretty. Oh, I wish I could get a good picture of it for you, but I can't. But it's so pretty. I love it. It's nice. And it wasn't. 2 years later, Bundy's son Ammon was at the forefront of the right-wing takeover of Oregon's Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, arguing that the federal government must turn over all public lands to the states to open them for private development. The occupiers called themselves the Citizens for Constitutional Freedom. When anti-government gangs marched on Charlottesville in the 2017 Unite the Right rally, they were the logical outcome of the right-wing militancy that the anti-New Dealers had tried to cultivate in 1934 to bring down FDR. The ensuing decades of violence were nurtured by bullies who just justified their actions with a right-wing political ideology. In Charlottesville, leaders brought together different groups, dressed similarly and carrying the emblem of tiki torches, to organize and attack the government. This time, though, the president stepped up to lead them. Trump refused to condemn the rioters, telling a reporter that there were, quote, "very fine people on both sides." The president's defenders denied that he had meant to encourage the alt-right, but the reality was there for anyone willing to see. The Unite the Right rally drew a clear political line in America. Former Vice President Joe Biden watched the events at Charlottesville and concluded that the soul of the nation was at stake. Trump's praise for the very fine people, aligned with the rioters, horrified him. Quote, "With those words, the President of the United States assigned a moral equivalence between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it," Biden said. "And in that moment, I knew the threat to this nation was unlike any I'd ever seen in my lifetime." He committed to running for president and to defeat the man he believed threatened our democracy. Trump was building a right-wing populist army, but Republicans still did not speak out. Oh my gosh, we're at chapter 15. What time is it? 9:10. I wonder if we should try one more chapter. Let me see. Oh yeah, we'll do one more. It's not that long. Okay, chapter 15 is next. I'm gonna take a drink of my soda. I hope there's, although I understand if people don't come during the night, because maybe what you want to do is put it on when you are gonna go to sleep. Or maybe not. I don't know. I don't want to presume. But that's why I'm never disappointed, but I realize this has lower live viewers. It's alright. I'm happy. I'm very happy. Alright. The next chapter is chapter 15. And it's called The First Impeachment. So we're just ramming our way to present day. I can't wait. Republican lawmakers stayed behind Trump so long as he was delivering their wish list, and he was doing that for sure. In addition to the 2017 tax cut, which slashed the corporate rate from 35% to 21%, Trump's presidency enabled Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to complete the judicial project begun by President Ronald Reagan's Attorney General Edwin Meese, decimating the judiciary that stood behind the liberal consensus. During Trump's term, McConnell churned through judicial nominees. That was just a little sneeze. Oh, this moon's so low in the sky. Oh, so pretty. It's like a painting. It's like a Vermeer. Or whoever that person is that paints the moonlight. Who's the painter that paints the moonlight so beautifully? I love Vermeer. Vermeer's one of my favorites. He probably wasn't a very nice person, but I like his paintings. All right. During Trump's term, what? Hello, Gesundheit. Thank you. That's an appropriate level of Gesundheit. Okay, here we go. During Trump's term, McConnell churned through judicial nominees. Oh, I can tell this is going to be a great chapter for me and my speech impediment. Putting in place more than 1 out of every 4 federal judges and, crucially, 3 Supreme Court justices. But would Republicans back Trump after news broke in September 2019 that he had undermined national security to use the power of government to steal the 2020 election? Republicans had turned against President Richard Nixon for far less when they learned that his operatives had bugged the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee in Washington's Watergate Hotel, and it became clear that the president had covered up the scandal. Back then, they agreed with Democrats that Nixon had acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of the constitutional government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice, and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. See, I like that quote right there. I like that quote a lot. Trump's 2019 subversion of constitutional government made Watergate look quaint. The story broke on Friday, September 13, 2019, when the chair of the House Select Committee on Intelligence, Democrat Adam Schiff of California, sent an astonishing letter to Trump's acting director of national intelligence, Joseph Maguire. It said that members of the Intelligence Committee knew Maguire was illegally withholding a whistleblower complaint about classified information. By law, Maguire had to turn it over to Congress. Instead, he had taken it to Trump loyalist Attorney General William Barr. Quote, "The committee can only conclude," Schiff wrote in bold type, "that the serious misconduct at issue involves the President of the United States and or other senior White House or administration officials." Within days, Trump admitted that on July 25th he had called the new president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, to enlist his help against former Vice President Joe Biden, who was beating Trump in most polls going into the 2020 election season. Zelensky was desperate for the money Congress had approved to help his country fight Russian-backed separatists in the regions Russia had occupied after the 2014 invasion, but Trump indicated that he would release the money only after Zelensky announced an investigation into the actions of Biden's son Hunter during his time on the board of Ukrainian energy company Burisma. There were some old themes in this story. Trump was, once again, using an investigation to prod the media into spreading lies about an opponent, as his 2016 campaign had done with the investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails. Significantly, he had not asked Zelensky for an actual investigation, only for an announcement of one. He could trust the American media to pick up the story and, as media reports of the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails had done to her campaign, seriously weaken Biden's candidacy. Once news of the call became public, Trump defended it with his usual strongman hyperbole. It was a, quote, beautiful phone call, quote, a very friendly and totally appropriate call in which he made no demands of Zelensky, no quid pro quo. He reminded people that they had backed him during the Russia investigation, maintaining that complaints about the phone call were a continuation of the greatest and most destructive witch hunt of all time by the radical left Democrats and their fake news media partners. And then, when the story heated up, he promised to release the complete, fully declassified and unredacted transcript of the phone call, kicking the can down the road as he had done over calls for him to release his taxes or his wife's immigration records. But there was something ominously new, too. No longer a candidate, Trump was now the President of the United States, and he was using the power of the government to force a foreign government to take part in a campaign to hurt his political enemies. Like the autocrats he admired, Trump was not simply breaking a law. He was rejecting the idea that ordinary people had a right to govern themselves. By ignoring the rule of law, he was trying to establish that powerful men can, and should, stack the deck to hold on to power. How would Americans react? A week after Schiff sent his letter, Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi of California began a formal impeachment inquiry, and the following day, apparently to head off the investigation, Trump released a, quote, readout, notes taken by others who had been on the phone call with Zelensky. Although incomplete, it was still bad enough. It proved that Trump had asked Zelensky to do us a favor in connection with the release of the promised aid. That afternoon, the White House finally gave the whistleblower complaint to the House and Senate Intelligence Committees. The next day, September 26, the House Intelligence Committee released the complaint to the public, and the people could read for themselves the whistleblower's concern that Trump was soliciting foreign interference in the 2020 election, and that both Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and Attorney General William Barr were implicated in the scheme. The complaint laid out how Trump tried to strong-arm Zelensky into smearing the Bidens, and how White House officials had buried the tape of the call on a secret server. I'm going to stop there. So is no one investigating Ukraine? So we're just going to let that one go? I guess that's harder to prosecute, because he could definitely say that was a presidential duty, I guess. Weird. Terrible. In October, 3 House committees, Intelligence, Oversight, and Foreign Affairs, began to collect testimony from current and former officials in the State Department. Trump promptly accused Schiff, the Intelligence Committee chair, of treason and said there was a coup underway. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, a Trump loyalist, said that State Department officials would not appear before Congress, and White House counsel Patsy Baloney said the White House would not cooperate with the inquiry. But a number of officials were willing to testify voluntarily, and the story they told reached far beyond the problematic phone call. Trump and his allies were running a shadow foreign policy to advance the president's interests. Their plans directly opposed the interest of the United States. After Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014, the U.S. had prioritized supporting democratic Ukraine. State Department officials had put one of the nation's very top diplomats, Marie Yovanovitch, in Ukraine, where she stood firm against the nation's corrupt leaders. Eager to get rid of her, those men told Trump's team, led by his ally and sometime lawyer Rudy Giuliani, that if Trump would fire Yovanovitch, they would announce an investigation into Hunter Biden and would say that Ukraine, rather than Russia, had interfered in the 2016 U.S. election. Trump's team and the corrupt Ukrainians were reaching an agreement when, on April 21st, Zelensky's victory ruined their plans. Apparently out of patience, Giuliani simply announced on Twitter that Ukraine was investigating Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC for conspiring with Ukrainians and others to affect the 2016 election. The next day, Yovanovitch was recalled, clearing the way for Trump's team to get to Zelensky. In May, acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney arranged for 3 amigos, Gordon Sondland, a wealthy hotel owner Trump had made the U.S. ambassador to the European Union, Kurt Volker, then a volunteer special envoy to Ukraine, and Energy Secretary Rick Perry, to work around the State Department and pressure Zelensky. Giuliani, too, continued to badger the Ukrainian president to announce an investigation, telling him that Trump was his client. On July 25th, Trump called Zelensky to squeeze him personally, and in August, Volker and Sondland drafted a statement for Zelensky to read on television. It would announce an investigation into Burisma and allege that Ukraine, not Russia, had intervened in the 2016 election. But a U.S. official on Trump's July 25th call threw sand in the gears by filing a whistleblower complaint. The story was clear. Trump and his cronies were undermining U.S. interest and using the power of the government to keep him in the presidency.
In the public impeachment hearings that began in November, Trump loyalists in the House of Representatives made no effort to disprove the overwhelming evidence against the president. Instead, led by Representatives Doug Collins of Georgia, Jim Jordan of Ohio, and John Ratcliffe of Texas, they supported the president's attempt to create an alternative reality. They badgered witnesses, compared Democrats to Nazis, and insisted that those investigating the scandal were elitists who hated Trump's regular guy supporters. They manufactured sound bites for right-wing media, which used them to create false narrative that would skew not only the past, but also the future. But something else emerged from the hearings, a powerful defense of American values. Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch, NSC official Dr. Fiona Hill, and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, all naturalized U.S. citizens, championed the principles they believed America stood for. All three had either lived or studied the Soviet Union, and their testimony and presence contrasted the authoritarianism of Russian President Vladimir Putin with what they believed to be the democratic values of the United States. While Yovanovitch testified before Congress, Trump personally attacked her by tweet, giving a real-time demonstration of the dangers of an autocratic leader. As he had told Zelensky, she's going to go through some things. A top-level intelligence analyst before becoming the top expert in Russian European affairs on the National Security Council under Trump, Hill hammered home that those smearing Ukraine, including those congresspeople questioning her, were parroting Russian disinformation, and that Putin was flooding the country with such disinformation to destabilize democracy. Most effective, perhaps, was Vindman, who had come to America with his father and two brothers from Ukraine when it was a Soviet republic. Along with both of his brothers, Vindman joined the U.S. military, where he was wounded serving in Iraq. Quote, "I have a deep appreciation for American values and ideals and the power of freedom," he said in an opening statement. "I am a patriot, and it is my sacred duty and honor to advance and defend our country, irrespective of party or politics." Vindman echoed the language of World War II America when he spoke of the all-volunteer army, made up of a patchwork of people from all ethnicities, religions, and socioeconomic backgrounds, who come together under a common oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. Then he assured his father that, unlike in an authoritarian country like Russia, he and his family would be safe despite his testimony against the president. He would be okay, he said, because he was in America. Here, he said, right matters. Democrats in the House of Representatives voted on December 18, 2019, to impeach the president for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. On January 21, 2020, the Senate trial of Donald Trump began. In the Senate trial, Trump's lawyers and allies ignored all the evidence and simply echoed the talking points of right-wing media outlets. Trump had done absolutely nothing wrong. His phone call with Zelensky was a perfect phone call, and the Democrats had been out to get Trump since the early days of the Russia scandal. Their defense of the president was so inept that Senate Republicans took on the job of defending him themselves. Although Ted Cruz of Texas noted, "Out of 100 senators, you have 0 who believe you that there was no quid pro quo. None. There's not a single one." Republican senators stood behind Trump. "This is not about this president. It's not about anything he's been accused of doing," McConnell told his colleagues. "It has always been about November 3, 2020. It's about flipping the Senate." Schiff, the leading House manager of the Senate impeachment trial, made a final stand on American principles. He recounted the facts of the case and laid out the dangers of an unchecked president. Can we be confident that he will not continue to try to cheat in this very election? Can we be confident that Americans and not foreign powers will get to decide, and that the president will shun any further foreign interference in our democratic affairs? Schiff asked. The short, plain, sad, incontestable answer is no, you can't. You can't trust this president to do the right thing. Not for 1 minute, not for one election, not for the sake of our country. You just can't. He will not change, and you know it.
He has betrayed our national security, and he will do so again. He has compromised our elections, and he will do so again. You will not change him. You cannot constrain him. Truth matters little to him. What's right matters even less, and decency not at all. Schiff begged the Republicans to say enough. If right doesn't matter, it doesn't matter how good the Constitution is. It doesn't matter how brilliant the framers were. If right doesn't matter, we're lost. If the truth doesn't matter, we're lost. The framers couldn't protect us from ourselves if right and truth don't matter. Against overwhelming evidence that Trump had used the power of the presidency to try to steal an election, on February 5th, 2020, Senate Republicans acquitted him of abuse of power by a vote of 48 for conviction to 52 for acquittal. Utah Senator Mitt Romney crossed the aisle to vote with the Democratic minority, thus robbing Trump of a pure party line vote that would enable him to insist that the impeachment was a partisan witch hunt. Trump surrogates found a way around that problem quickly. They simply said that Romney wasn't a Republican. On the second article, obstruction of Congress, the vote was 47 for conviction to 53 for acquittal. Republican senators had sacrificed democracy for power. The Republican Party was now the Trump Party. Convinced by right-wing media that used House Republican sound bites to create a false narrative, and without any Republican leaders contradicting them, his loyalists believed that the Ukraine scandal was a hoax, just as they had bought his claim that the Russia scandal was. And yet the 48 senators who voted to convict Trump represented 18 million more Americans than the 52 Republicans who voted to acquit. It was increasingly obvious that a minority was gaming the system against a majority, and that their only hope for retaining power was to repress that majority. But the Ukraine scandal and the Republican leaders' protection of a president who was weaponizing the presidency also galvanized those opposed to Trumpism. The day after the Senate vote, Bill Kristol, former leader of the neoconservative movement and previously a Republican in word and deed, tweeted, "Not presumably forever, not perhaps for a day after November 3rd, 2020, not on every issue or in every way until then, but for the time being, one has to say, we are all Democrats now." That is the conclusion of chapter 15. We did a very good job. I'm very proud of us. I'm very proud. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing, oh my gosh, what night is it? It's Tuesday night. It's Tuesday night, but now it's Wednesday morning for some of you. I don't know what tomorrow is. Oh wait, I think I do. I think there's something in the afternoon. I'll have to see. I better check after this. Wow. That was a lot. Yeah, I hope, wow, I really hope that your moon was fantastic. I really hope your moon was great tonight. My moon was great. And it just got better and better. Isn't that nice? When something, like, usually it's in the sky, and it just gets better and better. I think that's awesome. I think that's magic. This looks like a painting sometimes. Okay. Alright, my loves. It's time to go the fuck to bed. It's time to go the fuck to sleep. As Samuel L. Jackson, that amazing, incredible actor, would say, it's just time to go to fuck to sleep. So you go out there and you have the best dreams ever. And I hope you, if they're great, I hope you remember them. And if they're not great, then I hope you just don't remember them. Because why be bothered with that extra stuff in your head? Yeah. Anyway. Thanks again for coming. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Always, always appreciate it so very much. Seriously, you guys are the best. Really. All right. Good night, my dears. Have a good one. I'll see you.